The Google search engine returns a plethora of different possibilities in the results of the term mind maze. This includes neurology labs, a bar band, escape rooms, a Pathfinder spell, a math quiz, and several games. So leave your cares behind. Come with us and find the pleasures of a journey to the center of the mind. We all know the mind is a maze. In the late 1960s, there was a lot of mind-bending stuff going on. But I was just a kid, and I was pretty much addicted to things like pop music and board games and science fiction and pop psychology. So when 1970 came around, I was right in the middle of the demographic for a game called Mind Maze. The idea behind Mind Maze is to find your way through a maze that you cannot see. It's as much a memory game as anything else. So let me show you how this despicable little mind maze works. You can see that we have this plastic barrier between myself and my opponent. Within this half of the contraption, there is an array of little studs here on the surface of the thing. And you can see these little white things. These are barriers that you can place in there to create a maze. The maze goes from the bottom edge of this frame up into this hole right here, and you have a small BB. This BB and these magnetic wands are how you move through the maze. BB starts at the bottom. Close the lid here so it stays there. And I grab the BB with my magnet and work my way up through the maze. You see that going up there? And at some point, I'm going to hit a barrier and it falls to the bottom. So I have to remember where that barrier was, and I get to start over and go on up, but I won't make that turn. Oh, I won't do that. I'll go this way. No, I can't do that. I'll work my way around through the maze until finally I'll find my way all the way up to the hole at the top here, and the BB will come smacking through the hole, and I'll win the game. Of course, as you would imagine, my opponent has done the same thing. I've created a maze, and they're trying to find their way through that maze, so it's a race to see who can figure out the maze first. The complexity of this maze is based on the number of barriers that you are playing with, so that you can agree before the game starts, we're going to play with 20 barriers, or we're going to play with 30 barriers, or whatever it might be. Obviously, the more there are, the more complex the maze can be, the more difficult the maze can be. Now, you can kind of balance the challenge if you're playing with somebody who is a little less adept at memory games, or a little less adept at figuring out mazes. If I'm playing against somebody less qualified than myself, I can use fewer of the barriers so that they have a simpler maze to go through. But it is kind of frustrating at times. Can't go there. Just keep on trying through the maze until I find out where I can and can't move. Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Aha! Solved the maze. Marvin Glass and Associates was a design firm. They designed toys and games, and they were based in Chicago. The leader of the organization was, as you can surmise, named Marvin Glass. He was born in 1914 and started his company in 1941 to build prototypes for inventors, including his own inventions. He specifically focused on toys and novelty items. His first big hit was in 1949 with a little novelty item that was invented by a fellow named Eddie Goldfarb. I think everyone is familiar with Yakety Yak teeth. Now, Eddie Goldfarb actually worked for Marvin Glass for some time and invented a lot of other things through his exciting career. He had hundreds of patents and copyrights to his name, and one of the more famous one was a game that you probably remember called Kerplunk that came out in the mid-60s. After the outstanding success of the yakety-yak talking teeth, in 1960, Marvin Glass discovered an invention by a watchmaker who was named Leo Krepek. They developed Mr. Krepek's idea into a toy called Mr. Machine. It was a robot that kids could take apart and reassemble. The Ideal Company produced the toy and adopted it as its company mascot for some time. Well, Mr. Glass's creative team went on to create a string of hits, including Rock'em Sock'em Robots, The Light Bright, Ants in the Pants, The Mousetrap Game, Operation, SSP Racers, and Simon. And as you already suspected, they came up with the Mind Maze game in 1970 and licensed it to Parker Brothers. Marvin Glass died in 1974 under some very tragic circumstances, but the company survived until 1988, still making outstanding toys for companies all over the world. Mind Maze, of course, is not entirely unique. There's lots of games with hidden mazes that you're trying to discover. The Pathfinder game, games with hidden obstructions like Gusher, games with magnets, Strategic Command, games with screens between the players like Battleship, and every possible combination of those. But Mind Maze is just as challenging as it was 50 years ago. It's full of frustration when you hear that little BB drop to the bottom again, but then there's that elation when that little BB snaps onto your magnet and you've solved that maze. It's been out of print for decades now, but you can still find it all over. It's one of those great classics that will survive for a long time. There's almost nothing degradable in that box. So I definitely recommend if you get the chance to try out Mind Maze. It's a really fun time, and I think everybody will enjoy the challenge not only of creating that maze, like placing your battleships in Battleship, but solving that maze and emerging triumphant at the end of the game. So give Mind Maze a try and keep your mind sharp. Any kind of a maze will help you do that. Whatever you play, be sure to play every day. And I even made this maze myself.